Man, is there any way that this banner can be justified? Is Sonya able to completely carry this banner in any way? Because 87% of you are not interested. That's quite a significant amount of people. I'll do my best. Let's find out.
Let the lesson begin.
What's up, guys? Akariss here, bringing you another Fire Emblem Heroes video today. It is pretty late at this recording. I'm into the middle of the night now, because I'm not North American, but I wanted to make sure this video is released before the banner drops, as it is a analysis should you pull video. So here I am again, and man, this video may not be as energetic as the weapon refine video, but I'll do my best and give you guys the best information I can with this banner. Should you pull, of course, the analysis and the poll. As you can see, I've already put it up onto the screen. Now, normally I share this at the end of the video, but I figured I'd share it at the beginning. I think this is the least invested banner that many of you are committing to. It feels like those of you that are sparking here are likely just picking up Sonya or Tharja because you just really like the unit as a favorite, and I completely understand that. And I think for most people that is likely the case on what you should do for this banner. Now, I did do my impressions on the rest of the units, so I'm gonna have a clickable above me, so go check that out if you're wondering about like Althea or Maria or Henry or whatever, so go check them out. This video is strictly focusing on Sonya, her builds, her allies, and generally just what I think of her, plus what you guys think of the upcoming banner. I think the timing on this banner is probably really unfortunate, as it is right before Hero Rises, with 4 greens coming up and some very premium good units there. Now, this banner does have 2 greens on it and will throw a bunch of good fodder at you, including Sonya, who's actually quite good based on my analysis and just information that I've gathered throughout this video. I do feel that Sonya is actually a pretty solid unit and will find a place in actually a lot of modes. So I will cover her due diligence here for maybe those of you that might at some point pick her up, maybe later when she comes back as a double special, or maybe you're considering throwing a spark or not. In general, should you pull? Probably not, as of course there is that 4 green Hero Rises banner, which will likely appeal to most of you. For me, it's a pretty easy skip, and I think as it shows below, 87% of you are also skipping. Now, before we begin the analysis itself, I do implore you as always to smash a like button and sub. I'm really asking from the deepest of my heart here because I did put a lot of effort into these videos today, so I really would like to see that you guys also appreciate and engage in this video. If you want to just watch it through for the algorithms, that also matters quite a bit, and I do appreciate it, guys. There's maybe something you'll learn out of this, or maybe some allies or strategies that appeal to you, even if it's not necessarily Sonya related. Either way, thank you guys. And if you want to go the extra mile, yes, just check out the Patreon description below. I do my best to give back to those that support me as well through hero review videos, theory crafting, and Discord streams, and a name drop at the end. So again, thank you. Here I am, and another video for you guys. So let's do this. Starting with what I think of Sonya, of course. So to get this started, of course, I'm going to drop the skills up here in case you forgot what they are. That is after we talk about the stats, actually. Let's talk about stats first, then I'll drop the skills. And as well, I wanted to actually put in my pros and cons of her below. So Sonya's stats are very good, and this is probably that whole Tharja Sonya effect where it's just very stat heavy in attack and speed, and this is going to show in some of her builds that it really does matter. However, they've completely dumped the defense and res, which, as you can see on my notes below, that she is very frail as a result of that, and is honestly not very good at retreating either, as something like Trace doesn't synergize well with the whole teleportation gimmick that Sonya Tharja has. If you trace in with teleportation, you don't get that trace. That does make her pretty good when you consider a dancer who can come in as well. Dancer, and then she attacks and then makes full movement on that trace, which is honestly pretty good, but it's not going to be too great for something like Summoner Duels where you're likely going to hard commit, or if you do actually end up using a trace on something else in the turn, and then you just kind of go in and the unit is completely left open that way. However, she is honestly the best nuker in the game. With that stat spread and that weapon, which we'll talk about in a moment, she's very good. Like, honestly, I can't even think of another one that's going to be as good of a nuker as Sonya and Tharja here. There's going to be definitely some competition, but generally speaking, this is as hard as it gets for a hard-hitting unit in the game that should honestly kill everything in the game. However, she is pretty weak to something like Ice Mirror, Ascent of Fjorm, or just units who are running like damage reduction specials. If Sonya is able to actually cleanly hit with an AoE special, which isn't too hard to set up, because of the nature of the weapon, then she wins those matchups as well. But something like air defense and AoE don't mesh too well, and AoE can be played around in something like Summoner Duels if you know, like if you can see it coming. So unfortunately, there are some weaknesses here that make her not so great, but generally speaking, a very powerful nuker, great mobility, weak retreat options, very frail, but there's going to be a lot of cool builds I can cover here as well. So if you're wondering about the fodder, then you can also consider that attack speed unity previously found on Brave Marianne is here, and speed res hold, which is a new set of rain skills, which are really great because they work up to 3 spaces. This is awesome for support units, and you're going to likely see it quite a lot later on, maybe throughout the year. And I do think it deserves a spot on pretty much all support units. It won't really be an upgrade for nukers themselves, as the 3 movement generally won't matter. But yeah, let's move on and actually talk about the skills this time. So I'm going to put them up here, and we will also cover some initial builds. So as I said, her weapon is ridiculous. It is a slaying weapon, and it's also a turn 1 acceleration weapon. It's not so great in something like Anima Season, where you're obviously hit by Elemine, but it can be pretty good on air defense for Dark Season. Notably if you're not using AoE, because that can be played around. But what I think is pretty important to talk about here is her weapon's secondary effect, where she's getting extra attack 4, speed 6, gives you bonus attack based on how big the cooldown value is. This means it's very good with AoE specials, and actually pretty good with Aether as well, just because Aether is a 5-charge special. So you'll see me make use of that in some of the builds later on, but AoE specials and Aether are pretty good. And then for something like Arena, Blue Flame or Aether are also pretty good, depending on how you want to play it. Blue Flame is insta-charge, while Aether is 5-charge. But Aether can be charged with the Harmo skill, so that's also something to consider. So Valencia and Awakening characters really benefit from this. This can be found on Dual Alphons as well, a special acceleration kind of dual skill. However, that one I believe was limited to like infantry only, probably maybe armored as well, I can't remember fully, but this is great for Valencia and Awakening units, which I'll show some allies going forward. So anyways, if you do end up with Sonya Tharja, then a great way to use her, budget, with honestly just Fury Desperation. You can't really go wrong with that. QP to charge that Blazing Wind without relying on any allies. For the more invested variant, pumping up her attack stat as much as possible with L&D, double L&D in the A skill and in the seal slot, giving her a trace just for the extra hit, like the extra damage, and potentially the mobility if you use it with a dancer, makes her extremely potent, and you can even switch the AoE from blazing to growing because it's going to just still hit really, really hard. One other thing to note though is unfortunately if you have to use the L&D seal, you have to rely on some sort of ally such as Duo Crom, Valoria, Raphael, or Legendary Hector to charge up her AoE to on turn 1, because without Quick Impulse it's going to be hard to do that. So the invested version does appreciate that though, because you're just going to blow up everything. Finally, in Arena, she can be quite good as well because this Harmo skill will just set up things nicely. The G-Dual Flying 4 is just something you'd have to pick up from, I believe, Spring Indigo from last year. Trace is pretty nice, as we're going to get a bunch of Far Trace in something like Hero Rises, or just the Free Ninjoran, and with Blade Session, you're just going to be nuking things very well, on top of having a very nice attack stat. Don't forget. Alright, next set of builds here that I'd recommend, and this is what I mean by build flexibility, is she can run a couple other things as well. Advantage set, where she's unmerged with like a minus HP, means that just a single combat with Fury, double Fury, will put her into Vantage range, and this is honestly really good. Now, I honestly think that Aether might be a better special than Luna there. Luna is a great engagement tool, but an alternative is Aether as well. As I mentioned, that extra attack you get off of the weapon doesn't rely on the special to be charged, so running something like Aether is actually pretty good to just give you more Vantage damage. So you have this character who can actually Vantage with some super sky high attack stat. And I have occasionally been using Vantage strats in air offense lately, and I think in Summoner Duels it's quite a good strat because not everyone runs Hardy Bearing or may not have the right exact answer for whatever you're running. So a Vantage strat in both Summoner Duels or air offense is great. Finally, with a near save tank, she can potentially do this as well. Unfortunately though, being a ranged flyer does mean that she's missing out on a couple of key components from being a great tank, which is, again, she doesn't have great bulk. She has to use IL shield because if she's a ranged flyer, then unfortunately she's susceptible to bow units. So it's not amazing, but her attack and speed stat can probably just carry her and blast through a lot of great things. The fact that she's also highly mobile means you can take out key targets and potentially retreat into a better position. So you can do it as a tank, but it's probably one of the weaker builds, and I don't think I'd necessarily recommend it. Next up here is a just air defense variant, which will likely use wind sweep, sturdy impact, and something like Fury. This is great because speed res hold is just good on defense, and her high mobility of teleportation can just mean that she just jumps in and potentially picks off stuff. However, she is very weak to Ascended Fjorm, and because of that, I don't think she's going to be too great on air defense, because with wind sweep, you're denying her own double, and of course, Ascended Fjorm's Ice Mirror will just take away most of the damage and absolutely one-shot her. So, biggest issues with that. But her greatest partners, in my opinion, are going to be some of these characters here. There's obviously more, and if you think there is even more to add to this, feel free to add it to the comments. I'd love to read that sort of stuff from you guys as you add to these sort of videos and help out others as well. So great partners here. If you're going to run a Vantage strat, someone like Muspel is without a given very good. I use Muspel quite a bit in different strats. He's honestly one of the most unique supports in the game if you have him. If you don't feel obliged, but he is very good. Next up are just two Awakening characters that are more recent but also very relevant. If you were to use the Harmo skill on these two, it helps them quite a bit because it not only gives them extra attack, but lets them use specials that they otherwise would have difficulty setting up. So something like Grima there can just have his special completely charged. And since he's a character that relies on specials, this can be really awesome. So you don't have to deal with, let's say, guard effects or ruse effects or just anything that's denying your special in general. Pre-charging that is really good. For Dual Chrom here, by running the Harmo skill with Dual Chrom, you can actually charge an AoE special. And again, he's a great user as well with nuking this sort of stuff, so he appreciates it. But they work in tandem really well because he is able to charge her special if she's running an AoE, and then with the Harmo skill, she can charge him. They both give themselves attack. And honestly, I think she comes with attack speed unity, which of course also works really well with Chrom's dual skill. So you can just see that sort of synergy. This was probably intentional by IS, so dual Chrom does work really well with her. Okay, and that basically covers some of the builds that I wanted to show with you guys and some allies. What we're going to talk about next is, of course, what you guys think. So I did show this at the beginning, and yeah, most people are skipping here, but as you'll see in a moment by the comments, this is most likely due to Hero Rises, and I don't blame any of you for doing that. So Marilina, as the first comment here, says, just free summon, maybe a later investment. With AHR coming up, I can get my Ninja on a +6 from free copies alone, or I can summon on double special banner. She does also mention in the next paragraph, so just summarize it, is that she was using Ninja Igreen quite a bit, and of course Ninja Igreen is a great comparison here, as the mechanics are fairly similar, with Ninja Igreen being with a Brave weapon and the same teleportation gimmick that her and Halloween Noe share. So yes, I do actually feel like Sonya is a great air offense unit. I want to say a pretty good Summoner Duels unit as well, but the problem is her timing on this release is pretty poor, and maybe the double specials can be a good redemption arc for that. Keep in mind that Ninjoran, Duo Azura, Thor, and of course Legendary Male Byleth coming on Hero Rises are just all very good units and even more limited than Sonya is at the time of this. The banner does last a month, but you might not have enough orbs for it to matter. Next comment here is by Saint Aiden, who is a big Tharja fan, as I know. Says he's going to have to go all in on this one. He summons with competitive goals in mind, but he would drop everything for a Tharja ult. A little bit disappointed that she's not the lead character in the pair, but my resolve is steadfast. It helps that Dogger won't be on the AHR banner, which makes that one skippable for me. So yeah, Dogger fans and White Dogger fans, this is probably maybe your opportunity to pick up a Sonya. But when you see those favorites that show up, I can't blame you for feeling tempted to summon. Final comment for today's video is by Race Magic on YouTube, who says, really torn on this one, tempted to pull green and dip with the duo, but I also know AHR has way more value. So yeah, be careful. Even though the unit itself might be very good, without a spark, there's no guarantee you get it, so be mindful that you don't waste too many orbs with Hero Rises coming up, where obviously there's much better value. So yeah, folks, this was my short and sweet video featuring Sonya and the banner and its unfortunate timing, but hopefully you do appreciate this in some form. You can always review it later when the double special comes back and if Sonya has interest for you. Either way, thank you guys for watching as always, and thank you for your feedback, as it has helped motivate me to make sure this video gets released before the banner does, and maybe it'll save some of you from feeling tempted on summoning on this, because realistically it's not that appealing, and clearly the poll shows it. So thank you guys, smash that like button and sub if you haven't already. I will see you guys tomorrow for a Luthier video on a blue Landscav. Yeah, that'll be fun. See you tomorrow. Peace.
It's over.